Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's so much that has taken place over the last week and during the course of this hearing that, frankly, stirs in me, as in my colleague, Senator Booker and others, great emotion. I join issue with the statements of Senator Booker. I am deeply concerned and troubled about the words that I believe that Dick Durbin has shared with us that came from the President of the United States. I believe that the words spoken by any president of these United States are powerful words and should be spoken with a spirit of unifying and not dividing our country, should be spoken in a way that brings dignity to other human beings and does not demean them. I am deeply concerned when we are just having celebrated the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King, who spoke about the effect of racism in this country and words that are motivated by racism. For so many reasons, they are harmful. They have led to death. At their mildest form, which is not mild, it suggests to one group of people that they are inferior, and to another that they are superior to their fellow man. This is a pivotal moment in the history of our country. When we are having discussions about whether the people of Norway, and I will use your words, Madam Secretary, and you spoke about how they were referred to as, by contrast to the people of Africa and the various countries, the 54 countries of Africa and Haiti, and we speak of them, and you've spoke of them, according to the President, as the people of Norway. Well, you know, they work very hard. The inference being the people of the 54 states of Africa and Haiti do not. That is a fair inference. And you run the Department of Homeland Security, and when you say you don't know if Norway is predominantly white, when asked by a member of the United States Senate, that causes me concern about your ability to understand the scope of your responsibilities and the impact of your words, much less the policies that you promulgate in that very important department. You opened by talking about a number of statistics that paint the threats the country faces from terrorism. In particular, you spoke of those who commit acts of terror who were not born in this country. The study you mention, however, leaves out some of the most rampant terror attacks that we've seen lately, which are domestic acts of terror. As has been mentioned, there is a report from the FBI and DHS which outlines white supremacist extremists, and I quote, the report says, will likely continue to pose a threat of lethal violence over the course of the next year. The report states that white supremacist extremists are responsible for 49 homicides and 26 attacks from the year 2000 to 2016, more than any other domestic extremist movement I'm quoting. It is deeply troubling that in your opening comments, when you talk about the threats to our nation, our homeland, to national security, that you failed to mention a report that outlined a very specific threat to us as the American people. Deeply troubled. You must understand the inference, the reasonable inference that the American public is drawing from the words you speak, much less the words of the President of the United States. Now, I'd like to move on and talk about your management of your agency. You and I spoke several times during your confirmation process, both at a personal meeting on November 2nd and in your November 8th confirmation hearing before the Homeland Security Committee. In your confirmation hearing on November 8th, you stated you would issue guidance to your agents stating that DACA recipients and dreamers are not enforcement priorities. Have you done that?
They are not enforcement priorities, ma'am.
Have you issued that statement and that to your agents, that guidance?
That is clear from the ICE.
That's not my question.
I personally have not, no.
You also committed that you would make clear to DHS employees that DACA recipients' information would not be shared for enforcement purposes. Have you done that?
I have verified that. It is not proactively shared. If it's a national security threat, that's a different matter, but DACA information is not proactively provided. I have verified that.
That's not my question. Not have you verified it. That's clear to me.
It's in policy. It's an existing written documentation.
My question, I will repeat, is based on a commitment you made to me in another United States Senate hearing.
And I'm saying that written is already exists. So I didn't need to redo it. It already exists.
That is not the point. Have you made that clear?
Yes, I have.
Hundreds of thousands of employees in your department.
Yes, I have had multiple meetings where we have discussed this, and I have clarified again and again. Yes, ma'am.
Have you issued some kind of directive, written directive, to the hundreds of thousands of employees of your agency?
It already exists.
So you've not done that. That's the short.
Why would I do it again? It already exists.
Okay, let's talk about why you would do it again. Let's talk about the data that shows that there has been an increase of, I think, threefold of the number of people who are non-criminals by ICE's own definition who have been detained in your department. Can you give me that number, please? How do you reconcile your point, which is that it's clear to the agents in your department, when the data supplied by your own agency does not reflect that?
The data that I have has 92% last year being criminals and those with final orders of removal.
And so where we have information that there has been an increase of the number of people, nearly 3 times the number of individuals with no criminal history as compared to the same period last year, are you saying that's incorrect?
I'm saying I don't have the data that you're looking at. Is it final orders of removal, or is there another national security threat?
No criminal history.
That's not what I asked. Is it a final order of removal?
We're talking about the people that you are contacting. Are you prioritizing equally people with no criminal history as you are those who you described earlier as being criminals because they are felons?
We prioritize those with criminal convictions as well as those with final orders of removal.
So my question is, do they have equal priority in your agency?
They're both top-tier priority for enforcement.
Do they have then equal priority?
Ma'am, we're going to enforce the law. If there's a final order of removal, we will seek to remove you.
Okay. What is your budget request for this year?
I don't have the figure for FY18.
Do you believe that your department and agency is adequately funded, or that you are in need of resources?
It depends on the particular area, but we have worked very closely with the administration to ensure that we do have the tools and resources we need to do our job.
So I'm assuming that you have adequate resources, which is why you can apply equal priority to those who are felons and those who have no criminal records.
Ma'am, we will not ignore the law. If you have gone through the system and you have a final order of removal, you are a priority to be removed.
This past Saturday, following a recent U.S. District Court ruling, your agency resumed accepting DACA renewal applications. Will you commit to providing direct notice to all DACA recipients about their ability and right to renew?
I will look into that, yes, ma'am.
You will recall that when you went
by the way, it's posted on the website, and it's posted for anyone who is a current DACA recipient that they can read it and understand how they can reapply.
It is also posted on your website, is it my understanding, that we are no longer accepting initial or renewal requests for deferred action for childhood arrivals. Are you aware that that's on your website right now?
No, I'm not.
I would suggest that you get to that right away.
We will clarify.
During your confirmation hearing, you also told me you would issue written guidance to frontline officers on DHS's sensitive locations policy. And in light of the case that you have now been asked about at this hearing about the 10-year-old with cerebral palsy surgery, can you tell me, have you done that, which is issue guidance to your agents on sensitive location policies?
We've clarified the guidance, and we have had discussions with leadership on how to ensure that every person who enforces the law understands what those sensitive locations are. Those sensitive locations have not changed since 2012.
And what guidance, did you provide the guidance that you're now referring to in writing to all of the agents in your department?
It's in writing.
Can you submit that to my office? And when did you issue that?
We can submit it, we can provide it to you, yes, ma'am.
When did you issue that?
It's the same guidance that's been in existence since 2012. What we have done is clarify and reinforce the existing guidance.
And you'll send me that clarification?
Yes.
And you mentioned in your testimony today that in that case of Rosa Maria Hernandez, that your agents were being helpful in escorting that family, the 10-year-old who needed surgery.
To the hospital.
To the hospital. So I would suggest to you it is not helpful for Border Patrol agents to follow an ambulance to a hospital and then arrest a 10-year-old after her surgery. And I would ask you to review the efficacy of the conduct of your agents and your perspective on what happened that day.
I'm happy to provide you the actual facts of what happened. I'd also just like to say, if I could, Chairman, if you don't mind, yes. It's not a fair inference at all to say that my comments about Norway were in contrast to any other country. What I was describing was the President's views upon meeting with the Prime Minister, and what I was quoting was what he was told in meeting with the Norwegian delegation. That's what he was repeating. That were words that they said that he repeated that then I repeated. It was not meant to be in contrast. With respect to white supremacy, we take that very seriously. As I said, that we have expanded our prevention efforts of terrorism in the Department of Homeland Security to ensure that we, in fact, are going after violence of any kind. Any kind is not appropriate, and I will not allow it to occur if it's within our authority to stop.
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that the record, I'm sure, and we can all review it, will reflect that in the opening statements, when discussing challenges to our homeland in terms of security, the white supremacist threat was not mentioned. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.